Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of A Nigerian Man's Perspective. So today I'm going to continue from where I stopped. I'm going to put the link in the last video I did on the protests that are scheduled to happen on the 29th of July 2024. Of course, I'm talking about the Nigerian protests and the youths planning to go out to the streets to protest against the government due to hardship, due to cost of living crisis, petrol prices, so many different issues. And I talked about in that video that the president was begging people not to go and protest. So this video, I'm going to be reacting to a news that broke out about an hour ago with the Nigerian president looking to field army to crush protests, says the headline. But let's watch the video together. And as usual, I'll be giving my reaction at the end. Let's get into it.
Hello and welcome. We begin with the latest from the West African nation of Nigeria, where anger against the Bola Tinubu government is simmering, and citizens are taking inspiration from ongoing protests in East Africa's Kenya and Uganda. The Nigerian government says the military will intervene to prevent any violence at protests by citizens. The military has warned the protests would head off anarchy. Now, this and the armed forces won't allow the nation to spiral out of control. Nigeria's police chief also warned against the protests, blaming self-appointed crusaders and influencers for igniting the protests. Nigerian citizens are mobilizing for protests from the 1st of August against bad governance and economic hardship. The government says these protests could turn violent as they were inspired by events in Kenya, where the youth took to the streets and forced the William Ruto government to scrap tax hikes. In a statement, President Bola Tinubu said that he does not want a Sudan-like situation in Nigeria. He said his government is not afraid of protests, but the damage it would cause to ordinary people. The Nigerian president also met with the traditional rulers to seek their help for countering protests.
Yeah, if you're new to my channel, please give this video a like and share it to as many people as possible. So early comments on this one. The last major protest that was done was a few years ago. I think it was October 20, if my memory serves me right. The NSAS protest, which was brutal. It was brutally ended by members of the army who tried to quelch the protests, and people lost their lives. It was messy. It was probably the biggest protest I've seen in my lifetime as a Nigerian. And there were so many lessons to learn from that protest. So from what we're seeing here, the government doesn't want this to happen, clearly. The government is pleading for more time. Like I said in my last video, the government is pleading, the president is pleading for more time. Whether that more time will be given, it seems to be. My earlier video said July 29th, sorry. And this video is saying 1st of August. So I don't know if some negotiation has been done to move the dates by a couple of days, but let's keep watching.
Earlier this week, Nigerian government held an emergency meeting in response to the nationwide protests. More than 40 cabinet ministers, including the National Security Advisor, attended the meeting. The government has sought more time to end economic hardships. Last week, the president agreed to more than double the monthly minimum wage for federal workers. The government also started delivering truckloads of rice to each state to ease the cost of living pressures. Economic troubles for Nigerian citizens rose exponentially since President Tinubu ended a costly fuel subsidy and liberalized the naira currency in reforms needed to revive the country's economy. Inflation in the country has risen to a 28-year high of 34.2% since the Tinubu government's reforms. The last
34.2% inflation. That's like that's actually insane. That's actually insane. And the people are suffering. The people accounts every single day that I hear from Nigeria is not positive about this. Everyone is feeling it. Don't just think that it's people at the bottom. Everyone is feeling this pinch of the economy being in the state that it is, and people are hungry. People are hungry. Cost of a bag of rice, cost of bread, cost of staple items, transportation, things are unbearable. Yeah, you saw in the video there, some people were trying to distribute rice. Will that rice get to the final consumer? Will those bags of rice or those packets of rice get to the final consumer in terms of the amounts that have been allocated and the amounts that have actually been distributed? But I think these protests need to they need to hold. But I'll give my final thoughts on this one towards the end. Let's keep watching.
major protest movement in Nigeria in October of 2020 began over abuses by the SARS anti-robbery police squad, and it grew into the largest anti-government demonstrations in Nigeria's modern history. The police unit was disbanded, but the protests ended in bloodshed. Youth-led protests against the government first started in Kenya, where the campaign is still on against William Ruto. It then inspired youth in Uganda to raise their voice against President Museveni. A crackdown on demonstrators is underway in Kampala too, and now Nigeria, where tensions are simmering as the D-Day approaches.
So this just reminds me of the Arab Spring a few years ago, where, if my memory serves me right, I think it was Libya, Egypt, and was it Algeria or Tunisia? I know, definitely Libya and Egypt. Yes, those two countries, definitely. And there was just a wave of protests in northern Nigeria. And as she said, rightfully said, Uganda and Kenya had their own wave, or Kenya still has their own wave of protests still happening. Uganda, they're trying to quell the protests. Nigeria seems to be next on the line. Unless the last minute intervention happens, people are really angry. People are really hungry as well. And having a protest is a fundamental right. It has to be done peacefully. It has to be done respectfully, and the respect and peace has to be on both sides, from those who are protecting the citizens, like the police or armed militia or anti riot police, to the people that are actually going there. And yeah, we'll always have to learn lessons from previous protests. And I'll just say, whoever is going out to protest, just make sure that you do that safely. If you decide that that's what you want to do on the day or the day's concerned, just try and make sure you prioritize your safety and your peace. It's very, very important. Let's keep watching.
So the youth in Africa clearly want a significant change in their political leadership. Will these protests inspire winds of change in other African nations too? For more on this, we have with us Dr. Chukwudiri Nwangu, a political analyst and postdoctoral research fellow. He joins us live from Nsukka in Ngunu state of Nigeria. Thank you for being with us, Doctor.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
The Nigerian military have said that they will intervene if the protests erupt in Nigeria, saying that they would head off anarchy. What are your thoughts on this kind of a reaction by the authorities in Nigeria?
Okay, well, in the first instance, the reaction from the Nigerian Military High Command, represented by its spokesperson, is a clear indication that the government of the day is more or less on a panic mode, given the impending protest that is expected to commence on 1st of August 2024. So the government is on a panic mode, and that in itself has made the military, which is largely a conservative state institution, to come out and make a pronouncement to the effect that if the protest turns violent, that it would intervene. But it is important to point out a few things here. One is that the military, based on extant constitutional provisions, does not have express right or powers, rather, does not have express powers to intervene in civil matters or in domestic matters. The Constitution clearly recognizes that the military is the state institution empowered to ward off issues that border on external aggression, issues that threaten the integrity of the country, especially from the outside, not from within. Civil protest or social movement or civic movement, as is being planned out by a number of personalities, is purely a civil matter which ordinarily should elicit the intervention of the police.
Yes.
The police is the only organization or the institution of the state that is empowered to do so. So the military can only intervene on invitation of the president or his representatives to do so if the police and other paramilitary forces are overwhelmed. So it is not of the military to begin to tell the public or to threaten the protesters, the prospective protesters with an impending intervention.
Right. And Doctor, what are the main grievances that are driving the need for these nationwide protests in Nigeria, and what impact would these protests have on daily life, security, as well as the economy?
Good question.
Okay. The protest is called the End Bad Governance protest. It is also called the Days of Rage protest in certain quarters. So in Nigeria, within the past 2 years or thereabouts of President Bola Tinubu's government, Nigeria has been characterized by a progressive increase of negative growth in all indices, in all known economic indices. Whether we are talking about inflation, whether we are talking about cost of living, and so on and so forth, they have all been on the rise. Meanwhile, the purchasing power of an average Nigerian has been on the decline, or has rather been on a stagnant position. So given all of this, living in Nigeria has become increasingly more difficult within the past 1 year plus. So in the light of all this, which have also found expression in an environment that is characterized by the implementation of various kinds of neoliberal economic policies, like the removal of fuel subsidy, which was announced on 29th May 2023, that is the day the president was inaugurated. From the fuel subsidy removal to the floating of the local currency known as the naira, amongst other neoliberal policies, all these have further impoverished an average Nigerians. So the true position of things today is that there is hunger in the country, there is bad governance in the country, the standard of living has further worsened, and the cost of living has further increased, thereby making it extremely difficult for an average Nigerian to survive.
So I'm just going to leave the link in the description to watch the full video down below. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe, like, and share this to as many people as possible on all your social media networks, including WhatsApp. So you've heard it. You've heard it from the doctor. The doctor's added more context to what I said earlier, but really it's about hunger, it's about anger, it's about cost of living, and it's about frustration. There's a lot of frustration in the land. But like I said earlier, my own wish is for this to be peaceful. My own wish is that there's no bloodshed that comes out of this. My own wish is that the citizens should have their day in a peaceful manner, to protest in a peaceful manner, as afforded in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and for excessive force not to be used or as a disguise to threaten people, which we've seen in previous protests. So I'll leave it here for this one. See you in the next one. Thank you for staying with me. See you later.